second part gets over. So this is particular written. No one knows about this letter, as I think so that during the war, Jim would have died. Or let's hope so. Let's see. Now the third part comes. I folded the letter again and slipped it carefully back into its envelope. Now here, who's saying this particular? Kids? Students? This is the narrator is saying. He read the letter in the second part, and now he has folded it. So here he kept it into the envelope. I kept awake all night. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I drove into Bridport, just a few miles away. I asked a boy walking his dog where Copper Beaches was. That is name of a place. House number 12 turned out to be nothing but a burned out shell. The roof gaping, the windows boarded up. So here where Connie was living, that particular house had caught fire. And right now no one was living over there. I knocked at the house next door and asked if anyone knew the whereabouts of Mrs. Macpherson, that is about Connie. Oh yes, said the old man in his sleepers. He knew her well. A lovely old lady, he told me, a bit muddle-headed, confused. Oh yes, said the old man in his sleepers. He knew her well. A lovely old lady, he told me, a bit muddle-headed, but at her age, she was entitled to be, because right now she was 101 years old. 101, okay? Wasn't she? 101 years old. She had been in the house when it caught fire. No one really knew how the fire had started, but it could well have been candles. She used candles rather than electricity because she always thought electricity was too expensive. The fireman had got her out just in time, means the whole house was in fire. Okay, as you can see that the candles were on, and as she was using candles, so due to candles the house may have caught fire. She was in a nursing home now, means after when she was rescued from the fire, she was being taken to the nursing home. He told me, who? The fireman. Burlington House on the Dorchester Road. That nursing home was situated on the other side of the town. Now here the narrator, he goes to that particular nursing home. Now what happens over there? Let's see. I found Burlington House nursing home easily enough. There were paper chains up in the hallway, and a lighted Christmas tree stood in the corner with a lopsided angel on the top. So you know that when you see a Christmas tree or a Christmas party, you can see the Christmas tree and whatnot decoration. So the same thing was done over here. I said I was a friend come to visit Mrs. Macpherson to bring her a Christmas present. So here he is mentioning that he brought a Christmas present and he wants to meet her. I could see through into the dining room where everyone was wearing a paper hat and singing. The matron had that is the main chief nurse, okay, or the in charge. The matron had a hat on too and seemed happy enough to see me. She even offered me a mince pie. Mince, if it is vegetarian, if it is a non-vegetarian, then it will be of meat and all. She walked me along the corridor. Means both of them went towards the corridor. Mrs. Macpherson is not in with the others, she told me. She rather confused today, so we thought it best if she had a good rest. She has no family, no one visits. So I am sure she will be only too pleased to see you. She took me into a conservatory with wicker chairs and potted plants all around and left me. So you can understand, you can see over here, there is a picture where she is being, Mrs. Connie is sitting. You can see her condition. You had seen many a times in movies also such. Let's see now what happens after that. The lady was sitting. The old lady means who? Jim's wife. That is Connie. Now she is old enough. But when this letter was written, at that moment she was young. The old lady was sitting in a wheelchair, her hands folded in her lap. She had silver white hair pinned into a wispy bun. Bun means you can see over here how is her hairstyle. She was watching out at the garden. Hello, I said. She turned and looked up at me vacantly. Just in zeros. You don't know what you are watching. Means in your own. She turned and looked up at me vacantly, without reason, or empty-headed, as it is being said, as she was muddled. She didn't knew at this particular age, 101 years person, how he or she would be. You can understand. Happy Christmas, Connie, I went on. I found this. I think it's yours. As I was speaking, her eyes never left my face. I opened the tin box and gave it to her. That was the moment her eyes lit up with recognition and her face became suffused with a sudden glow of happiness. So here, everywhere, she was very excited to watch the narrator. I explained about the decks, about how I had found it. Means he tells her how he got this letter and everything he tells her, reveals it. But I don't think she was listening for a while. She said nothing but stroked the letter tenderly, very fragile, very kindly. Okay, so here she stroked the letter tenderly with her fingertips to handle it softly. Okay, to handle very softly. Suddenly she reached out and took my hand. Her eyes were filled with tears, as you can understand that she was longing to see Jim. You told me you would come home by Christmas, dearest. Now this particular lady, that is Connie, who is 101 year old, long back when this letter was written, at that moment this Jim had promised that he will be returning back, and she thinks that the narrator is Jim. So she is saying she thinks him as her husband, and so she says, and here you are, the best Christmas present in the world. Come closer, Jim, dear. Sit down. Now the narrator sits down. I sat down beside her and she kissed my cheek. I read your letters so often, Jim. Every day I wanted to hear your voice in my head. It always made me feel you were with me. Means here she is saying that even though you are not there, but when I read your letter, your voice is there. She feels that as if he is talking to her. And now you are. So she feels now the narrator is Jim. Means she mistook him as a husband. Now you are back. You can read it to me yourself. Would you do that for me, Jim dear? I just want to hear your voice again. I would love that so much. And then perhaps we will have some tea. I have made you a nice Christmas cake, marzipan marzipan all around. I know how much you love marzipan. So, written by Michael Morpurgo. So here